What's going on, Occupy family? It's your boy Walid. I'm here with Brian, and a eventful week to say the least for the DFS world.
Oh man, yeah, we could spend many podcasts talking about the happenings in the DFS world this week. But yeah, exciting nonetheless, and you know, it it can't get any better with divisional round coming up this weekend. So
For sure, man. We got four games and um, two different slates, right, for for FanDuel yet again. But yeah, I'm thrilled, man. Do you want to spend a few seconds to kind of just recap this drama for anyone that's been living under a rock?
yeah, I think so, and I think it's important for some of the casual players or people who don't even play DFS that may listen to this to understand fully what happened. That way, people can have informed opinions about the matter. Basically, if like you said, if you've been living under a rock, this past weekend on the DraftKings Millionaire Maker, the big tournament where they award $1 million to first place, a former Bachelor contestant got the top prize, $1 million. But shortly thereafter, there were some evidence that she may not have made the lineups herself. The fact may be that her husband had 150 lineups on his account, also used 150 lineups on her account. Again, this is something you can't fully 100% prove. A lot of the evidence is pointing that way. DraftKings has put a hold on their account. They can't withdraw the money. They can't enter contests, and an investigation is underway. And with this interesting happening, a lot of people have turned to talking about collusion or working together, not just for these Bachelor contestants, but other DFS professionals. So it's been a higher level discussion this week too.
For sure, man. And there's always some fun that comes out of it, right? We've had some great memes and great ongoing jokes through and through, but all together, definitely not what you want to hear in DFS. We know that this isn't anything new, but when you get a former reality TV show contestant that gets exposed for it, it is definitely, let's say, more attractive to like the mainstream media narratives. But yeah, absolutely bullshit, right? Like for people that play by the rules, and you're someone who, as of last year, did start max entering contests after your big win, and I mean, really right before your big win, but. Understanding that, look, these GPPs that have 120,000 entries, they're going to tilt towards people that have more entries in them. And something that we've really, I think, preached since day one is avoiding these contests, right? Um, uh, because even if people weren't cheating in them, it would still be an uphill battle.
Right, exactly. I mean, entering one or two or 10 lineups into a contest where professionals and people who make lots of money playing DFS can enter 150 times, and as we've learned, or it may come to light more than 150 times. You're put yourself at such a huge advantage. And while just going back to the 300 lineup point, while that doesn't guarantee a win by any means, of course it doesn't. It's still defeating the rules. It's a loophole.
Mm-hmm.
So in this day and age, I know this is a very unpopular statement, but both things can be true. Like it can be cheating, but also not guarantee a win, or it could go around guidelines. So
For sure.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
And I mean, increasing your odds from 0.01% to 0.02% in the grand scheme of things obviously doesn't change it, but it's still cheating, right? It's still breaking the rules. It's still, doing something unethical. And unfortunately, there's really, I mean, look, in order to really, and we've had conversations kind of behind the scenes. There are ways to fix this, right? Both DraftKings and FanDuel, they could invest very well in teams of data engineers that really focus on seeking these sort of things out, right? Obviously, it hasn't been a priority to them, and they've been around for what, a number of years at this point. So expecting them to change is pretty like out of touch.
Yeah.
But kind of for what it's worth, it's just the nature of the game. This is kind of where you're at, and if you're playing these contests beyond knowing that it's a 150 max, like these are the possibilities you open yourself up to. That your three lineups might be going against someone's 600 lineups because they have four buddies that have been colluding through and through, and they haven't been caught.
Yep. And this all really comes back to the point of why we created Occupy Fantasy, right? Like giving back to the people, bringing the winnings back to the people, and it all comes down to contest selection. And I know as we start to preview this weekend's games, this applies, and not just this weekend but beyond. Picking the right contests. I mean, we have an entire chapter in the Ultimate Guide about how to avoid professionals in your contest, and it takes some due diligence, and most people are focused on the actual picking players, creating lineups part, when really a majority of your time being spent, especially if you're in the bottom 99%, you're not doing this full time for a living. You're looking to make some extra bucks, have some sweats on the weekend or at night for a chance at a decent payday. And you can do that and pick contests properly and not put yourself at such a massive disadvantage.
Well said. And I think that's all we need on that topic. And for those that think, hey, man, we're not hard enough. You've seen our Twitter account. We know it's bullshit, and we could talk in your ear all day about it. But at this point, it's kind of tired out. We'll see what DraftKings ends up doing. I'm not holding my breath, but yeah, let's talk about this weekend slate. So we have four games. We have the Vikings at San Francisco. Now that line opened with the Niners being 6.5 point favorites. It has moved up to 7 points, and the implied team total has actually moved down a point and a half from 45.5 to 44 points.
Yeah, so a little surprised in my eyes. I thought Minnesota would get a ton of love here after beating the Saints. But San Francisco was a strong team throughout the year, and that line has held strong for the most part. And 44, the total dropping from 45.5 is interesting to me too, because I think both of these teams, especially San Francisco with a week of rest, could put up some points here. So I'll be interested to follow this total move throughout the weekend.
For sure. No, the bye week is a big, but there's four teams coming off a bye, and like you said, the lowest implied total of the slate, and two stellar defenses going at it.
True.
We have the Titans and the Ravens. The Ravens opened as 10 point favorites with an implied total of 49 points. They are still 10 point favorites, but the implied total has dropped 2.5 points.
That's interesting to me. I guess the betting markets are anticipating Tennessee continuing this effort to run the clock out and secure a close victory. But again, we know how these game plans go. If they go out and get punched in the mouth and are down 14-0 early, all this goes out the window.
Spot on. We have the Texans, who dropped a goose egg in the first half last week, but responded with a comeback, a hell of a comeback at that. They are 8 point well, they started 8 point underdogs against the Chiefs. They're now 10 point underdogs, and for what it's worth, we have the implied line moving 2 points. Now we know what Andy Reid does off bye weeks. Is this kind of indicative of that?
I think so, and I think a lot of it is to do with Houston struggling last week to even get by the Bills, and I think the Chiefs here are just in an explosive spot, and we've seen the total go up 2 points. The only truly big line increase in the total for the weekend. So this bodes well for Chiefs skill position players.
Cool. Now I'm in the dark. If you didn't notice, the automatic lights went out here. But Seattle at Green Bay. The Packers are 4 point favorites. Minimal line movement here. The over and under going up by half a point to 47.5.
Yeah, I think the thing to note here is that Seattle's getting a majority of the bets early throughout the week, and that's probably not surprising. You figured they would be a popular road underdog, but what sticks out to me is that the sports books have held strong and haven't move the Green Bay line at all, which is pretty indicative of which side they think is the right side here so far.
Honestly, if you told me that Russell Wilson would be calling the offensive plays this week, I'd say, and Brian Schottenheimer was not allowed in the stadium. I'd say it's a pick'em game.
Yeah, that's probably fair. I mean, if you saw some NFL Films highlights this past weekend, he was talking about the wide open spaces that the play action was generating on the sideline when him and Schottenheimer were looking at the screenshots together. So yeah, I wish he was, because then they wouldn't jam Marshawn Lynch into the line 20 times this weekend.
Let's go through some injuries and kind of our expectations. So earlier in the week, we were a little skeptical about Mark Ingram dealing with a calf injury, but he did practice today. Shefty is saying he should play. He's officially listed as questionable. What's your gut tell you?
I don't like it. I think with this calf injury, the time to return was, I think, what, 2 to 4 weeks, and so he's on the shorter end of
Mhm.
that. And the biggest thing to me was that he was shut down in practice on Wednesday after experiencing tightness on Tuesday, which is never a good sign, this late in the recovery process. So I think he tries to gut it out, but
Mhm.
my
He's
initial
as
feeling.
tough as it comes.
Yeah. And there's no denying that, especially in the playoffs. I just think that there's a high chance for re-injury. There's also a high
Yeah.
chance of a split workload, him not being 100%. So I think Gus Edwards is one of the more interesting plays of the weekend, especially if we get any news that Ingram is going to be limited.
Yeah, definitely opens things up for him. Adam Thielen, who had a massive catch last week, he's dealing with a ankle laceration, but it looks like he should be fine.
Yeah, not sure how this happened. Said he got tangled up, but had to get some stitches in practice on Wednesday. Didn't
Mhm.
practice Thursday, but I wouldn't be too concerned. I think this is more of they need to let the stitches heal and
Yeah.
not risk him busting them open on Thursday a couple days before the game. I think as long as there's no major snags here over the next 2 days, that they'll probably just glue it up, tape it up, and he'll be fine for Saturday with no issues.
Yeah, it sounds like a safe prognosis, Dr. Jester.
Thanks.
Um, Marshawn Lynch looks to be in line for more snaps, according to Pete Carroll.
We knew this was coming, right? Like this
Hmm.
was an absolute lock that as soon as Lynch got in the game condition, that he would be getting more touches, more carries, even though homers looked more explosive. So it makes it tough to forecast this backfield. However, I do think the game script could play into this as well. If they get down and they're running 2 minutes or hurry up, I think Travis Homer is definitely better suited for that. We'll see if Carroll and Schottenheimer cooperate.
So let's kind of dive a little deeper into this slate, right? We have a plethora of really good stud tight ends available, and I know this isn't a strategy we would ever recommend on a normal slate, but when you have George Kittle, when you have Mark Andrews, when you have Travis Kelsey on the same slate, is it insane to consider playing multiple guys?
No, it's not, and especially on smaller slates, it's very very much an option. And that's a lot to say coming from someone who I've been very adamant about never playing two tight ends on full slate. So,
Yeah.
but I think what you have to look at here is that look at the pricing and look at the expectations for receivers and running backs in the same salary range on both FanDuel and DraftKings. You'll find that the floor and ceiling is high, if not much higher than some of the receivers and running backs in the same price range as Kelsey and Kittle in particular. But I think lead that a lot of people will gravitate towards Kelsey and Kittle, especially in the same lineup. And I think Andrews will end up going overlooked as a result.
Oh, I can definitely see that happening. So let's talk about some of these underperforming receivers. Surprise, surprise, Tyler Lockett on this list. Any other guys stick out to you?
Yeah, so a little bit more than we had last week. So we got Tyler Lockett, and again, we had to put some context matters here in the list, and we had to go back a couple weeks because of the bye week last week for Green Bay. But Alan Lazard, Marquez Valdez Scantling both appear on the list, and Lazard easy value, especially in low risk contests. I think the safer option, but I'm very intrigued by Valdez Scantling for a couple of reasons. One, his average depth of target has been like 30 yards over the last few weeks.
Mhm.
And while he fell out of favor with the coaching staff for whatever reason, he actually played the most snaps he's played in a while in Week 17. So I think that is
Which
looks
was a game that mattered, right?
right.
For
So I think that
sure.
looks pretty good for him. And on a short slate, a guy who gets 2 or 3 deep targets, all it takes is one for him to
Hmm.
hit and exceed value. So I think in high risk contests and in game stacks, he
Totally.
makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I mean, 3K on DraftKings. So would definitely open up your lineup. I mean, we're only talking high risk here. Someone that'll for sure be overlooked. So before we kind of wrap things up, give me your like gut feel about, and I saw your tweet last week where you said, you can't wait for these teams that won on Saturday to get stomped out this upcoming week. Has your gut changed at all? Do you see, I mean, the game scripts to be very favorable for these, home first round bye teams, or is there anything that's changed and maybe, giving some love to the underdogs?
No, I'm fully on board with that. Um, it's just such a massive advantage for these teams coming off a bye this late in the season, and we've seen that the last 3 years. Not a single uh, divisional team has lost 12 and 0
Mm-hmm.
over the last 3 years. So to me, still the teams that played not to lose last Saturday, Tennessee,
Mm-hmm.
Houston.
Houston.
I think they're just in complete opposite spots here. They cannot play like that in these games. I don't trust their coaching staffs to not play like that. I do think
Some teams can't help
they
it.
can't. I
Yeah.
mean, when you have to
Yeah.
take multiple false starts to punt, the punt in the first place is probably not a good idea. Looking at you, Coach Vrabel. So
Yeah.
I think Baltimore and Kansas City run both those teams out of the building. Seattle and Green
Mm-hmm.
Bay, I think, could be a little closer. Minnesota, San Francisco could be a bit closer. Minnesota does have the tough task of traveling to the West Coast after traveling to New Orleans. So that all plays into the records for these road teams in the divisional round.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that about does it here for us. We will be back next week as we preview the championship game slates. And you know where to find us at Occupy Fantasy. Brian, any content this weekend they should be aware of?
Yep, still the usual content. The Occupy model is out for NFL, ranking every player for both FanDuel and DraftKings. The Daily Plug, which will highlight every single game, go over strategies for both low risk and high risk contests, single game contests. That'll be on OccupyFantasy.com. And then join us on our Twitch stream Saturday afternoon before the 4 p.m. game starts, where we'll take your questions and discuss the slate in an even bigger depth than we did here on the podcast.
Perfect. All right, guys. Good luck with your lineups and good luck avoiding those cheaters out there.
Good luck, guys.